You ever have one of those days where there's a big, important task just sitting there, kind of staring at you, and you just can't? You know you should be doing it. You might even want to do it, but instead you're doing literally anything else. For a lot of us, the first word that pops into our head is lazy. But what if that word is getting it all wrong? Let's take a closer look at what's actually going on. Oh, yeah, we've all been this person, right? The deadline's getting closer, the blank page is just staring back at you, and your phone is right there, offering such an easy way out. But inside your head, it's not calm. It's a total storm of thoughts like, just start. Come on, why can't you just start? Why are you being so lazy? It's a really frustrating and paralyzing feeling. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack that lazy feeling. Because it turns out, for most of us, what we call laziness is actually a signal. It's a misunderstood message from our brain that has pretty much nothing to do with a lack of willpower or a bad work ethic. I mean, really think about it for a second. When you're procrastinating, do you feel relaxed? Are you just chillin', carefree? Or do you feel that little knot of anxiety twisting in your stomach? That guilt that just kind of follows you around while you watch another episode or scroll through your feed. And here is the absolute key that changes everything. See, true laziness is a choice. It's when you deliberately avoid something because you just don't care. But if you're beating yourself up for not doing the thing, that's proof that you do care. That stuck feeling, it's not a character flaw. It's a clue that something else is going on entirely. So, what is going on under the hood? Well, that feeling of being stuck usually falls into one of two big categories that we incorrectly call laziness: executive dysfunction and anxious avoidance. And, just understanding the difference is a huge first step to getting unstuck. Okay, so first, let's just be super clear about what real laziness is. It's when you actively choose not to do something because, honestly, you couldn't care less about the outcome. It's a shrug. It's a meh. And that state of true indifference, it's actually really rare, especially when it comes to the things that matter in our own lives. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I love this metaphor. Think of your brain's executive functions as its own air traffic control system. It's the part that's supposed to manage planning, organizing, and actually starting tasks. So executive dysfunction is when that control tower is, well, it's just having a really tough day. You can see all the planes, those are your intentions, but you just can't figure out which runway to use or how to get them off the ground. And then there's this one, anxious avoidance. This is super common, especially for people who are used to doing well. The pressure to be perfect can be so intense that the fear of not living up to it is, well, it's paralyzing. Your brain literally slams on the emergency brake to protect you from the possibility of failure. And the result? You do nothing. Because in that moment, doing nothing feels way safer than doing something that isn't perfect. This table just lays it all out so clearly. We use one single label, I'm lazy, for three completely different experiences. Real laziness is just not caring. But the other two, those are about being totally overwhelmed or terrified. The feeling isn't apathy at all. It's anxiety, confusion, and a whole lot of frustration. So, the first big takeaway here is this. We gotta stop using a single judgmental word for such a complex feeling. Being stuck isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that your brain is either swamped with logistics or just frozen by fear. Okay, but now let's flip this whole idea on its head. What if that urge to avoid effort wasn't a flaw? What if, in some cases, it was actually a sign of genius? Now, you've probably heard this quote from Bill Gates before, and it's not about rewarding people for doing nothing. It's a really deep insight into how innovation works. The person who naturally avoids unnecessary work is the exact same person who's most motivated to invent a shortcut or automate a process or find a brilliant new way to do something that saves everybody time. And this comparison just makes it so obvious. Working hard often just means you're following the old, inefficient way of doing things. But working smart, the lazy way, is all about questioning that path. Why do 10 steps when you can do it in 3? Why do this by hand every single week when you could build a system that does it for you? It's about focusing on the outcome, not on how busy you look. Now get this. This number really puts it all into perspective. Your brain is only about 2% of your body's weight, but it uses a whopping 20% of your body's energy. It is an incredibly hungry organ. So when you think about that, it makes perfect sense, right? Of course your brain is looking for shortcuts. Of course it doesn't want to waste fuel on things that are inefficient. That lazy feeling is often just your brain's built-in energy-saving mode kicking on. It's not a moral failure, it's a biological drive for efficiency.
Okay, so this is all great to know. We're not lazy, we're just overwhelmed or scared or secretly efficient. But how do we actually get moving? Well, the answer isn't to go find some magic source of motivation or just power through. It's about being a little kinder and a lot more strategic with ourselves.
Let's start with a super simple but really powerful technique to just get over that initial hump. Don't think about the whole project. Just focus on one tiny thing, like writing the first sentence or even just opening the right document. Pick that one tiny piece, set a timer for just 20 minutes, and go. A lot of the time, just starting is the hardest part, and this makes starting feel almost ridiculously easy. And for that fear-based paralysis, you can try this 3-step mental framework. First, just recognize what's really happening. Give the feeling a name. It's anxiety, it's not laziness. Second, reframe the goal. Let go of perfection. Remind yourself that good enough is way better than perfectly undone. And third, rest. And I mean guilt-free rest. Burnout often looks a lot like laziness, and real rest is the only cure for it. And that right there is the heart of it. This isn't about brute force, it's about finesse. We're not trying to wage war on our brains. We're trying to work with them. By lowering the stakes, by being a little compassionate, we make the whole act of starting feel so much less scary. All right, let's pull all this together now. We've kind of dismantled this whole myth of laziness, we've figured out what's really happening, and we've found some gentle ways to move forward. So the last step is to change the conversation we have with ourselves for good. So the next time it happens, you feel that familiar dread, that pull to just run away from a task and hide in some distraction, just pause for a second. Instead of immediately jumping to that old habit of, I'm so lazy, try getting curious. Treat that feeling not like an enemy you have to fight, but more like a messenger that has some really important information for you. And this is the ultimate takeaway. That feeling of resistance, it's not the problem, it's the signal. It might be signaling that you're burnt out and you just need to rest. It might be signaling that you're afraid of failing and you need to break the task down into smaller pieces. Or it might even be signaling that there's a much smarter, more efficient way to get the job done. By learning to listen to that signal with curiosity instead of judgment, you can stop fighting with yourself and start solving the actual problem. You're not lazy, you're human, and your brain is trying to tell you exactly what it needs. So the only question left is, are you ready to listen?